Welcome to the 17th episode of the Reality Transurfing Fundamentals series. Today, we explore a principle that can fundamentally transform your relationship with life itself, freeing you from the exhausting cycle of struggle and unlocking a new level of power and ease that most people never experience. This principle challenges everything we've been taught about achieving our goals and getting what we want. It's the paradoxical truth of letting go, and why releasing control actually gives you more power than you ever had when you were desperately trying to control everything around you. Let's begin with an experience that's probably familiar to you. One that happens to virtually everyone at some point in their lives. You're facing a significant problem or challenge. Maybe it's a conflict brewing at work with a difficult colleague or boss. Perhaps it's a relationship that's becoming strained, where communication has broken down and tension fills every interaction. Or it could be an unexpected setback in your finances, your health, or your carefully laid plans for the future. Whatever the specific situation, your response is probably predictable because it's been conditioned into you since childhood. Instinctively, your mind immediately wants to grip tighter, to take control of every variable it can identify. Your thoughts begin racing, analyzing every angle, dissecting every possible outcome, worrying about things that might happen, and trying to control not just your own actions, but somehow influence or manipulate every detail of the situation. You find yourself pushing harder, working longer, trying to force solutions that don't want to come naturally. When things don't unfold according to your carefully constructed plan, anxiety floods your system. You may lie awake at night replaying scenarios, trying to figure out the perfect combination of words or actions that will bend reality to your will. This response feels natural, even responsible. After all, aren't we supposed to take charge of our lives? Aren't we taught from an early age that success comes from effort, control, and refusing to give up? The idea of letting go can seem like weakness, like giving up on what we want, like resigning ourselves to whatever happens. But in Reality Transurfing, we discover something remarkable and counterintuitive. This grip of control, this desperate need to manage every detail, is exactly what creates resistance in your life. It drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and often blocks the very outcomes you're working so hard to achieve. To understand why this happens, we need to examine how the world actually operates according to the transurfing model. The universe functions according to a fundamental law of balance, a principle so basic that it governs everything from the movement of planets to the flow of energy through your daily experiences. When you attribute excessive importance to a situation, when you desperately want something with an intensity that makes your stomach clench, when you fear losing what you have with a terror that keeps you awake at night, or when you insist that things must happen your way and no other way will do, you create what transurfing calls excess potential. Think of excess potential as an energetic disturbance in the fabric of reality itself. Just as nature abhors a vacuum and will rush to fill empty space, the universe has an inherent tendency to restore balance when excess potential is created. This energetic imbalance automatically summons balancing forces, which are like invisible currents that arise to counteract your excessive attachment and bring things back into equilibrium. The problem is that these balancing forces tend to act against you, creating obstacles where none existed before, making your path more difficult and often bringing about exactly what you were trying to avoid. The paradox becomes crystal clear when you observe it in action. The more desperately you try to control a situation, the less control you actually have over it. The tighter your grip on what you want, the more it seems to slip through your fingers like water or sand. You've probably experienced this yourself. The harder you try to make someone like you, the more they seem to pull away. The more frantically you search for a solution to a problem, the more elusive it becomes. The more you need something to happen by a certain deadline, the more delays and complications seem to arise. But here's where the magic of transurfing reveals itself. When you let go, when you release your death grip on controlling outcomes, when you relax your desperate need to manage every detail and instead trust the natural flow of life, something extraordinary happens. Solutions begin to appear effortlessly, emerging from directions you never considered. Events start to unfold in your favor without you having to push and strain. Opportunities that were invisible when you were focused on forcing your agenda suddenly become obvious and available. This isn't mystical thinking or wishful hope. It's a practical understanding of how energy works in the world. When you're not creating excess potential through attachment and desperate importance, there are no balancing forces working against you. Instead, you can tap into what transurfing calls the alternatives flow, which is like a river of possibility carrying you toward your goals with minimal effort and maximum synchronicity. So what does letting go really mean in practical terms? This is crucial to understand because letting go in the transurfing sense is not what most people imagine when they hear those words. It's not about becoming passive or resigned. It's not about giving up on your dreams or accepting whatever scraps life throws your way. It's not about becoming indifferent to outcomes or pretending you don't care about things that actually matter to you. True letting go is about something much more sophisticated and powerful. It's about active trust. Active trust means you still take inspired action when you feel called to do so. You still move toward your goals and engage with life fully. You still care about outcomes and work to create what you want. The difference is in your inner state. You take action from a place of calm confidence rather than anxious desperation. You hold your goals and desires lightly, rather than with a white-knuckled grip that cuts off circulation to your creative faculties. You remain open to how and when results appear, rather than insisting they must manifest according to your predetermined timeline and specifications. This shift from control to observation represents a fundamental change in how you relate to your experience. Instead of being swept away by every thought and emotion, instead of obsessing over details and outcomes that may be completely beyond your influence, you learn to step back and become the observer of your own mental and emotional processes. You begin to notice when your mind is spinning in worry. You become aware when you're trying to force something that wants to happen naturally. You catch yourself in the act of creating excess potential and can consciously choose to relax your attachment. You can ask yourself simple but powerful questions in these moments. Am I gripping too tightly right now? Am I making the situation more important than it needs to be? Am I creating excess importance that's actually working against what I want? If the honest answer is yes, you can consciously choose to relax your attachment. You can remind yourself that life is not a battle to be won through force and struggle, but rather a flow to be navigated with wisdom and grace. One of the most liberating aspects of letting go involves releasing the need to be right or to win every interaction. Our sense of self-importance, our ego's need to be validated and proven correct, often keeps us locked in unnecessary battles. We argue with others when we could simply listen. We insist on our way when multiple paths could lead to good outcomes. We exhaust ourselves trying to convince people who aren't ready to be convinced. We take everything personally when most of what others do has nothing to do with us at all. When you give up the need to control every conversation, to win every argument, to have your perspective validated by everyone around you, you free up enormous amounts of energy. Energy that was previously tied up in defending your position can now flow toward creativity, intuition, and inspired action. You become more flexible, more able to find solutions that work for everyone involved. You stop wasting time and energy on battles that don't actually matter in the larger scheme of your life. There's a practical technique in transurfing called renting yourself out that can help you maintain this detached perspective. The idea is to engage with situations and people without becoming emotionally entangled, as if you were an actor playing a role, rather than someone whose entire identity depends on the outcome. You do what needs to be done, you show up fully and give your best effort, but you don't let the situation occupy your inner space with worry, fear, or attachment. This doesn't mean becoming cold or uncaring. It means maintaining your center, your peace, your perspective, even in challenging circumstances. When you can operate from this state of detached engagement, you often see simple solutions that were completely hidden when you were emotionally entangled in the drama of the situation. You respond rather than react. You make decisions from clarity rather than fear. You access wisdom that's not available when you're caught up in the storm of your own emotions. The alternative's flow is constantly available to guide you, but you can only access it when you're not fighting against it with excessive control and attachment. This flow is like a river of least resistance, carrying you toward your goals through the path that requires minimal effort while providing maximum synchronicity and support. When you let go of rigid control over how things must happen, you allow yourself to be guided by this flow. You become receptive to subtle signs and opportunities that you would have missed when your attention was consumed by worry and forced effort. Unexpected opportunities begin to arise, not because you forced them into existence, but because you allowed them by getting out of your own way. People show up at exactly the right moment with exactly what you need. Information comes to you through seemingly random conversations or chance encounters. Solutions appear that are more elegant and effective than anything you could have devised through pure mental effort. These aren't coincidences or lucky breaks. They're the natural result of aligning yourself with the flow of life rather than swimming against it. One of the most challenging aspects of letting go involves accepting deviations from your carefully planned script. Life rarely unfolds exactly as we envision it should. Your mind, trained from childhood to value control and predictability, often interprets any deviation from your plan as a problem, a failure, or a sign that something has gone wrong. But this interpretation is based on a limited perspective. You're seeing only a small slice of a much larger picture, like trying to understand a movie by watching only one scene. If you can learn to relax your grip on how you think things should go, if you can accept the unexpected with curiosity rather than resistance, if you can move with the flow of what's actually happening rather than fighting for what you thought should happen, you'll make a remarkable discovery. Many of the problems that seemed so devastating at first glance resolve themselves without your intervention. Many of the surprises that initially appeared to be setbacks turn out to be blessings in disguise, opening doors you didn't even know existed. Consider a concrete example that many people can relate to. You're waiting for an important response that feels crucial to your future. Maybe it's an email about a job you really want, a response from someone you're interested in romantically, or news about a project that could change your financial situation. Your mind immediately goes into control mode. You check your phone obsessively, refreshing your email every few minutes. You worry about what the delay might mean. You replay scenarios endlessly, trying to figure out if you said the right things or should have done something differently. This creates a state of tension and excess potential that actually interferes with the natural flow of events. Your anxiety and attachment create energetic interference that can delay the response or influence it in ways you don't want. Instead of this exhausting cycle, imagine choosing to let go. You do whatever action feels appropriate, then consciously shift your attention to something else. You trust that the right response will come at the right time, in the right way, even if it's different from what you expected. Often, when you genuinely release your grip on controlling the timeline and outcome, the answer comes much more quickly. Sometimes it arrives in a form you never anticipated, but turns out to be better than what you originally wanted. Sometimes the delay that frustrated you turns out to have been perfect timing, protecting you from something you couldn't see, or positioning you for an opportunity that wasn't yet available. This is why it's so important to understand that letting go is absolutely not the same as giving up. You don't abandon your desires, dreams, or goals. You don't become passive or indifferent to outcomes. You don't stop taking action or pretend that you don't care about things that genuinely matter to you. Instead, you learn to hold your vision lightly, like a butterfly that might fly away if you squeeze too tightly, but will stay with you if you remain still and open. You continue taking inspired action, but you do so from a state of trust rather than desperation. You move toward your goals, but you remain flexible about the path and timing. You care about outcomes, but you don't make them so important that they create excess potential and balancing forces working against you. This balance between engagement and detachment, between caring and letting go, between action and trust, is one of the most sophisticated skills you can develop. When you operate from this state, you allow what transurfing calls outer intention to work on your behalf. Outer intention is like having the entire universe as your collaborative partner, working behind the scenes to arrange circumstances, synchronicities, and opportunities in your favor. But outer intention can only operate effectively when you're not interfering with excessive control and attachment. Your inner intention, your personal will and effort, is important, but it works best when it's aligned with outer intention rather than fighting against it. You become more receptive to the subtle signs and opportunities that are constantly being offered to guide you toward your goals. These signs might come through conversations with strangers, information that appears at just the right moment, or sudden insights that arise when you're relaxed and open. They might manifest as doors opening where you didn't expect them, obstacles dissolving without your intervention, or people entering your life who bring exactly what you need. The practical steps for letting go begin with developing awareness of when you're trying to control, worry, or force a situation. This awareness is like developing a new sense, a sixth sense, that alerts you when you're creating excess potential. Throughout your day, you can pause periodically and ask yourself, how am I approaching this situation right now? Am I flowing with what's happening or fighting against it? Am I holding this goal lightly or gripping it so tightly that I'm cutting off its circulation? When you notice that you're in control mode, you can take a deep breath and consciously shift your state. This isn't about suppressing your concerns or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about acknowledging your feelings while choosing not to be controlled by them. You can feel worried about something while still maintaining your center. You can care deeply about an outcome while refusing to make it so important that it creates excess potential. Reducing importance is a key skill that develops with practice. You learn to remind yourself regularly that no single outcome, no matter how significant it seems in the moment, actually defines your worth or determines your future happiness. This doesn't mean that outcomes don't matter at all. It means you maintain perspective about what they actually mean in the larger context of your life. A job rejection doesn't make you unemployable. A relationship ending doesn't make you unlovable. A project failing doesn't make you a failure. The shift from participant to observer represents a fundamental change in your relationship with your own thoughts and emotions. Instead of being swept away by every mental wave, you learn to step back and watch your internal weather patterns with detached curiosity. You notice that thoughts and feelings arise and pass away naturally when you don't feed them with attention and importance. You realize that you are not your thoughts or emotions. You are the awareness that observes them. This observational stance gives you tremendous power because it prevents you from being hijacked by temporary mental and emotional states. When you're caught up in worry, you can't see solutions that are right in front of you. When you're consumed by anger, you make decisions you later regret. When you're operating from fear, you miss opportunities that require a leap of faith. But when you can observe these states without being controlled by them, you maintain access to your wisdom, creativity, and intuition. Trusting the flow requires developing a new relationship with uncertainty and the unknown. Most people have been conditioned to fear uncertainty and try to eliminate it through control and planning. But uncertainty is actually the space where all possibilities live. When you know exactly what's going to happen, there's no room for anything better than what you can currently imagine. When you embrace uncertainty as an adventure rather than a threat, you open yourself to outcomes that exceed your current ability to envision them. This doesn't mean you stop planning or preparing for the future. It means you hold your plans lightly, as provisional roadmaps that can be adjusted as new information becomes available. You prepare for what you can anticipate while remaining flexible about what you can't predict. You do your part while trusting that the universe is doing its part, often in ways you can't see or understand from your current vantage point. Taking inspired action is very different from taking forced action. Inspired action arises naturally from your inner guidance and feels aligned with the flow of events. It often comes with a sense of timing, an intuitive knowing of when to move and when to wait. Forced action, by contrast, comes from anxiety, impatience, or the belief that you must make something happen through sheer effort. It often feels like pushing a boulder uphill or swimming against a strong current. Learning to distinguish between these two types of action is crucial for effective letting go. You want to remain responsive to genuine inspiration while avoiding the trap of forced effort. Sometimes inspired action means taking a bold step forward. Sometimes it means waiting patiently for the right moment. Sometimes it means having a difficult conversation. Sometimes it means stepping back and allowing others to take the lead. Embracing uncertainty and welcoming the unexpected as part of life's adventure represents a complete reversal of the control paradigm. Instead of viewing deviations from your plan as problems to be fixed, you begin to see them as potentially valuable information or opportunities you hadn't considered. This doesn't mean you never try to influence events or work towards specific outcomes. It means you remain curious about alternative possibilities and open to solutions that come from unexpected directions. The gift of letting go extends far beyond achieving specific goals or solving particular problems. When you release the exhausting need to control everything around you, you open yourself to dimensions of experience that are unavailable to those caught in the control paradigm. You begin to access the wisdom of the flow, which is far more intelligent than your individual mind. You become receptive to guidance from your heart, which often knows things your head hasn't figured out yet. You start to notice and work with the magic of synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that seem to orchestrate themselves when you're aligned with life's natural rhythm. The greatest power, you discover, comes not from dominating life through force and manipulation, but from learning to cooperate with the deeper currents of existence. It's like the difference between trying to control a river by building dams and levees versus learning to navigate it skillfully in a boat. The river is far more powerful than you are, but when you understand its nature and work with its flow, it can carry you to destinations you never could have reached through your own effort alone. When you truly let go, obstacles that seemed insurmountable begin to dissolve, often without your having to do anything specific to address them. The energy that was locked up in resistance gets released and becomes available for creative solutions. Opportunities that were invisible when you were focused on forcing your agenda suddenly become obvious and accessible. You experience a new sense of freedom that comes from no longer carrying the impossible burden of trying to control everyone and everything around you. You develop a deep confidence that's not based on your ability to manipulate circumstances, but on your trust in life's underlying intelligence and benevolence. This confidence allows you to take risks you wouldn't have considered when you needed guaranteed outcomes. You become more spontaneous, more playful, more willing to experiment and explore. You waste less energy on worry and have more available for joy, creativity, and meaningful connection. As Vadim Zeland writes in the Transurfing materials, by being willing to release control, you will acquire more control over a situation than you had before. The objective observer always has the advantage over a direct participant. This is why I so often repeat the words, exercise detachment. In retrospect, you will see that the control you were exerting before was making you go against the flow. When you let go, problems resolve themselves quite satisfactorily without your having to know how, and the things that happen that do not fit with your plan turn out not to be so bad after all. This insight captures the essential paradox and promise of letting go. You gain more influence by releasing the need to control. You achieve better outcomes by holding them more lightly. You solve more problems by worrying about them less. You create more of what you want by being less desperate about getting it. These aren't just philosophical concepts, but practical realities that you can test and verify in your own experience. The practice of letting go is not something you master once and then never have to think about again. It's an ongoing cultivation, a constant returning to trust when your mind tries to grab control, a repeated choice to flow with life rather than fight against it. Each situation offers a new opportunity to practice, whether it's a minor inconvenience like traffic delays or a major challenge like job loss or relationship difficulties. Every time you choose to let go, instead of tightening your grip, you strengthen this capacity within yourself. You build trust in your own ability to navigate uncertainty. You develop faith in life's tendency to work out, even when you can't see how. You cultivate the inner stability that allows you to remain centered regardless of external circumstances. This is the deeper gift of letting go. It's not ultimately about getting what you want more easily, although that often happens. It's about discovering a way of being in the world that's sustainable, joyful, and deeply satisfying. It's about finding the peace that comes from no longer fighting a battle you can never win. It's about accessing the creativity and wisdom that emerge when you stop trying to control everything and start trusting the intelligence of life itself. In our next episode, we'll explore the rustle of morning stars, where we'll delve into awakening to your true power and learning to recognize the subtle signs that are constantly guiding you toward your destiny. Until then, practice letting go in small ways throughout your day. Notice when you're gripping tightly and consciously choose to relax your hold. Trust the process even when you can't see the outcome. Allow life to surprise you with its intelligence and grace. Watch as your world begins to unfold with more ease, joy, and possibility than you ever imagined when you were exhausting yourself trying to control everything around you. The universe has been waiting for you to relax your grip so it can show you what's truly possible when you work together instead of working against each other.